2013 to 2017, in between those two bull runs, I'm kind of convinced that we would have maybe been trending up, but we wouldn't have had that explosion if it wasn't for like the invention of Ethereum and smart contracts. And that's what caused the rush.
Hey folks, joined by Tyler Fallon of Lotto Finance and SapientPro. I'm really excited about having Tyler here because I've known Tyler since about 2021. He's actually one of the first people to introduce me to crypto. But the thing is, he's been in the space since 2011, 2012 when he first bought Bitcoin. And then he started working in crypto. You said what, 2014 or so?
Yeah, 2016 approximately.
2016. Okay.
Yeah.
So clearly a lot of knowledge here. And recently you put out a post about at what point should people be buying certain altcoins. And so that's something that I wanted to discuss with you. Also wanted to talk to you about what is actually going to cause the next bull run. I think that's where you and I have a difference of opinion. So I'd love to explore that a little bit. And then also maybe we can learn more about SapientPro and Lotto Finance, which is one of the first projects that I have come to learn about during my time in crypto. So welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Mikhail. Great to be here.
Yeah, so why don't we just dive right into it? I think you've got the post that you put out not too long ago on Twitter or X, I guess as they call it these days, where you go line by line and you cover like a lot of the altcoins. And you not only talk about which ones that you're buying, but you're also specifying at what points you're buying them. And wanted to understand, how are you coming to these price points? Like what gets you excited about these altcoins, and just go from there.
Sure. Yeah, so the first thing to kind of understand when you're framing crypto and you want to like look at it from the outside in is that there's like 3 seasons, and in the 3 seasons things kind of act a specific way every single time, regardless of like what year it is or how big the market is. There's bull, bear, and neutral. So we're currently in like what I would call a neutral market, where like we had the bull, of course, we had the bear, and now we're kind of in that in-between phase where we're not really bulling, we're not really bearing, and we're just kind of slowly rising, and people are building, and we're just kind of waiting for that next huge innovation to pop up and like send things up again.
So before you go on,
go
real quick, Ty, before you go on, because I think that people categorize bull market, bear market a little differently. Some people say like these sideways actions, they're all part of the bull run. They say, look, we never ended the bull run, but it sounds like what you're saying is we should classify these in shorter time frames.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm kind of classifying it in like the bull run being 1 year, the bear market being 1 year, and the neutral market kind of being however long in between the bull and bear markets that's kind of happening. But yes, long term, we're kind of in like a permanent crypto bull run. You can kind of say the same thing about like the S&P 500, where we're kind of just in this large tech boom where we're trending up at all times. So yeah, that's something to kind of know. Like crypto is always long term at the moment, and Bitcoin specifically, it's always trending up long term, regardless of whether we're going up really fast or down really fast. It's still, the trend is always up, right? So.
Got it. Okay. So now that we understand how you're classifying these categories, like bull run, bear market, and then also you have this like neutral sideways action, which sounds like you're saying that that's where we are right now.
Yeah.
Okay. So where do we go from here? Please continue, because I think I interrupted you as you were explaining.
Yeah. So a neutral market doesn't necessarily mean that we don't move at all. In a neutral market, it's kind of after the 1 year bull, after the 1 year bear. You can go neutral for as long as it takes for someone to have, like, there needs to be some sort of breakthrough innovation. Like, let me explain to you what happened like the last 2 times real quick to kind of like shed some light on this. Like 2013 to 2017, like in between those 2 bull runs, it was quite quiet. And the one thing that kind of changed that, I'm kind of convinced that we would have maybe even trending up, but we wouldn't have had that explosion if it wasn't for like the invention of Ethereum and smart contracts. That invention turned the market from like, we're looking at a bunch of coins that you can just send around and okay, this is pretty cool, decentralized currency, to like, oh, we could have an entire field now. And that breakthrough is what suddenly made people realize this is worth 100 times what it's trading at right now. And that's what caused the rush when that sort of breakthrough happened as people found out about that. So that was kind of what caused the 2017 run, right? Of course, a lot of it was air, but it was still a lot of hype, and people kind of saw, the future, similar to like the .com bubble, where they saw like what could be, but we just didn't have it yet. Well, 2021 was a similar case. We had a bit of a neutral period in like 2019 into 2020. And then we had the invention of like DeFi and a little bit later on NFTs that kind of spurred that market. And that was the same thing. I'm kind of just active in crypto. It's 2019. Things are going sideways. No one knows when the next run's going to be. 2020 starts and, February 2020. And there's kind of this movement towards like, wait, we could, instead of just having all these, dApps and smart contracts, like there's way you can earn yield on your crypto. Like just sitting in your wallet, you can like put it in like something like a Uniswap liquidity pool or in like Aave for lending and trading. So that's kind of a big, that was a big like use case for crypto, like something that could kind of be, useful in the long run as crypto grows. So yeah, when that came out and the yields were gigantic at first because there was more protocols and room in the protocols and users trying to use those protocols than there were actual like liquidity in them. So there was this huge rush of like 400% APY if you put your money here. So then like Uniswap went from like 0, I think, to like 5 billion in liquidity in like say 9 months or something like crazy like that. Yeah, and then when that happens, that kind of caused like that crazy wave. So we're kind of in this period now where like I've gone to a bunch of conferences and such, and people are developing incredibly rapidly right now. You see it everywhere. Like there's people building all these great things, but we just need that innovation to kind of like be like, we're looking at this $2 trillion market and it's like, oh no, this is worth like 12 trillion or 20 trillion. Like you will know when that comes. Like you will be talking to other crypto people and you'll say like, this valuation is incorrect, like objectively, and we are going to have a run, right? And then that's kind of when that whole cycle starts.
So Tyler, this is where I'm going to push back on behalf of a lot of people that will say that you're wrong. It's actually Bitcoin that spurs, that accelerates the process of this bull run. But it sounds like what you're saying, even throughout the history, when you first got into crypto in the early years, you're saying it's the innovation, like Ethereum coming on board, and now you can develop smart contracts, and that's what spurred the bull market. So are you saying that the innovation of altcoins is actually the catalyst for Bitcoin, and it's not the Bitcoin halving?
Yeah, so it's a bit complicated. Bitcoin's movements, like with the halving and all that does cause us to trend up for sure. If nothing else were to change and we still had the Bitcoin halving and all of that stuff, there's a huge amount of pressure, sell pressure let off during the Bitcoin halving. And that does cause us to trend up. But what it won't cause is like in a 1 year period, us to go from like $2 trillion market cap to $30 trillion market cap. It doesn't have, just changing the tokenomics of something slightly, it doesn't create that instant rush in a very short time. That's more of a like the halving and like the ETF, things like that. These are like longer, much longer term things that starts to affect the trend over time. Yeah.
Okay, got it. So now that we understand that it's the innovation that is giving Bitcoin and the rest of the market that additional boost, let's go into like some of these altcoins that you're pretty bullish on. I mean, I saw your list and it's a lot of different innovation, and it stems to everything from like EVM chains, and then you're also going into like Move chains, which is Move is the language derived from Rust, which is used to build like Sui and also Aptos. So wanted to like touch on those altcoins that you're pretty bullish on, and when is a good time to buy into them. Obviously, you put out the tweet, a few weeks back, but is now still a good time now that we understand where we are in the cycle?
Yeah, like when we're in kind of what I would call like pre-bull run or the neutral market, you can buy anytime, and you should buy anytime. The best thing to do right now is just accumulate. It doesn't really matter if you buy at, say, like let's say 55K BTC and you snipe the bottom, or if you buy at like 75K BTC and you're buying towards the top. None of these numbers are going to matter when we enter the actual next bull run. It just doesn't make a difference. We end up going to 250K, 200K plus, right? And you're not going to be like looking nickel and diming yourself for when you bought. The most important thing is just that you bought at some point. So you just want to accumulate at this point.
So, and how do we tell which ones we need to be accumulating? Because you look across the board, you look at the top 100, and it's pretty scary. You look at the previous cycles, and I'm sure you can attest to this because you've been there. It looks nothing like it does now, and we're starting to see some altcoins that are trending down. Unfortunately, like I'm a big fan of Cosmos Atom, but right now the technology is great, but specifically that altcoin isn't doing so well. You know, it was in the top 20. Now I want to say it's like 41, and so it's how do you tell which ones have the momentum?
Yeah, that's the hardest thing, and everyone wants to know the answer to that. I feel like you have to kind of have your finger on the pulse and find out where the actual building is and kind of feel out like the sentiment and where users are active. So there's no like magic bullet to this, but like an example is like, of course, I would say Solana is kind of going through its own like small to mid-sized bull run right now, separate from the rest of the space, and you probably have seen kind of what's going on there. And what happens in these cases, because this happened with ETH too in 2017, it takes time to build and for use cases to come up. So what happens is we have something like meme coins right now on Solana, where you see this activity, it's happening, right? And it causes builders to, when they have this app idea, they're looking at different chains they want to build on, and then they say, well, look at all the activity on Solana. We could get real users there if we build there. No one's really using ETH because of the fees, right? So they end up choosing kind of where they start to build where the people are. And then typically after some number of years, all of that building catches up to us. And all of a sudden you have this ecosystem that's built out. So yeah, there's like two stages. And yeah, like something like Cosmos, it hasn't even gotten into that like awareness phase. Like everyone knows what it is, but it hasn't even gotten to like the phase that like Solana's in yet, where we have like real users using the apps and people have downloaded the wallets, right? Like every coin kind of needs this phase as the first phase. And I would say like that's what you look out for. You look out for like some sort of initial boom. Like when this happened on ETH, it was with ICOs in 2017. And it caused everybody to download like My Ether wallet, and that was like the wallet back then that everyone used. And then eventually MetaMask. It caused everyone to have these wallets and get some ETH and potentially consider using it for investing in ICOs or like altcoins, right? So that boom, that's what caused the people to come in on ETH. So now we see it on Solana. So I'm pretty bullish on Solana, and at some point, like as far as the tech goes, the Cosmos tech is amazing, and I would say there's definitely a good number like of coins that have better tech than Solana. Like I think Say is a candidate that could be better, and just tech wise, it seems like it could be less centralized and just as fast, things like that. But sometimes you just have to follow the trends. Like users are not always rational, and they will not always go to where you want them to go or where the best place to go is. So yeah, it's tough to say other than Solana right now, like where. Yeah, but you can just watch out for that. You can just watch out for like, oh, look, like you see a little activity on base, like things like that, you know?
Your perspective is interesting because you're not only looking at it from an investor perspective, but you're also a builder yourself. So you're also weighing out your options, like where is the best place for my project, right? Like, so Lotto Finance, I want to say that you're currently building on Avalanche. You know, why did you decide to pick Avalanche, and what do you see the future holding for Avalanche?
That's a good question. Yeah, so that analysis that I just said, like builders do, yeah, we did that exact thing, of course, for Lotto. We had to like do this whole, I said like, let's look at all the possible chains in 2020 or 2021, and let's choose where to build this Lotto V2 dApp. And the choices at the time were ETH, BNB, Solana, Terra, Avalanche, and then everything else was a lot smaller, like Phantom and Cosmos, right? So those were the choices. There are no other choices for L1s. That's it as far as like multi-billion-dollar caps that if you build on anything smaller than that, there's just no users there. Like there's that like literal bordering on zero, right? So yeah, you can see this on DeFi Llama, like how much activity is on each chain and such. So those were the choices. Good thing we didn't choose Terra. So yeah, then when we're weighing like Solana versus Avalanche, because just say those are the top two. ETH was out because of the fees. That lottery would have costed $500 to run, so it just wouldn't have worked there. So the choice
layer
was
twos?
Oh, layer twos. Yeah, layer twos weren't really that big of a thing when we were making this analysis as well. That's the thing. Like it takes time to build, right? So when we did this analysis, like layer twos were not like really seen as like a futuristic thing, and also, if ETH ever scales and they do implement the sharding upgrade and something like that, like anything to scale ETH, L2s will be useless. They're just not necessary. So I see them as like a temporary solution to a temporary problem. And I'm trying to build a permanent solution to a like actual problem, you know? Like I want this, I don't want to build on an L2, establish this big app and user base, and then all of a sudden like the place that I built is now no longer valid. So yeah, like Avalanche, they have like an amazing community. They're really tight knit, but it exists. It's big. There are dApps there. There's actual building there. It is small, I will give you that, but it is still the biggest EVM based community besides ETH, I would say, that's out there. So this is what we have, you know, and yeah, so that's the only one that you could compare it to, right? And yeah, Binance's community, I feel like is like waning though. I kind of saw that trend where Binance was just first. You understand? Like they were the first alternative to ETH when they came out with BNB. So they got a lot of users based on that, but it's just an ETH fork at the end of the day. I just see it as another L2, another temporary solution. Yeah, it's a tough one, and I also don't think based on the tech that BNB would scale. If you started dumping more and more users on BNB, I don't think that tech scales at a large, like I think we end up in the same situation. Maybe it scales slightly more than ETH, but then we end up with a whole host of different issues. They just took certain shortcuts to kind of make the fees be a little bit lower for the user, but that's not a temporary fix. Avalanche actually has like fixes implemented on it. Yeah. To deal with the fees.
Oh, but if you look at their onboarding process, you know, kind of like Coinbase, right, where they decided to have an exchange and then you have a chain. So, I mean, is there something to be said about the ease of that onboarding process where you have like a chain, but then you also have like a major exchange, and so obviously they're able to generate a lot of revenue off of that, and that could be the reason why they just hit an all-time high recently, and nobody even talked about Binance, right? So there's still a lot of activity that is happening there. But, you know, to your point, Avalanche, the technology, even though it's a EVM, alternative to Ethereum, it's still a little bit different, right? You've got the side chains, and you've got some folks that are building on, I think it's a side chain is what they refer to. But Beam is one of them, pretty reputable, where they're building a lot of like gaming tools. So they do have a lot of interesting stuff going for them. And they're also working a lot with RWAs and talking to a lot of TradFi companies, so institutions. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's all bullish. Everyone is just competing for liquidity, right? Or liquidity and users. So it is tough to say like if something like that would be, you know, bigger potentially, you know, than, you know, another kind of established chain. Yeah.